Welcome to the first watercolor techniques video here on Patreon for my patrons only. And once again, I want to thank you so much for being here and for supporting this work that I'm doing. It means the world to me. And for our first video, we're going to go to the very basics of watercolor. And we're going to start, the first several videos will be very basic things because they are the foundation of everything else that we do. And if we don't have those things right, it's really hard to get good results in our projects. So I'm going to start with the split primary palette because the split primaries are an excellent way to learn color theory and color mixing. They're an excellent way to learn about water to paint ratio, which is something else that's really important that we'll be talking about. And you can choose any type of paints to do split primaries. Most manufacturers make the 6 colors that you would need. I have found some that are better than others, and I'm going to be sharing the ones that I think are the best. However, you can also find split primaries in some handmade watercolors. We'll be talking about that another time. I want to keep it as simple as possible, and while I love handmade watercolors and use them more and more in my work, there are times when I go back to my split primaries and a more traditional watercolor paint. And there are some really good reasons for that. So typically, the handmade watercolors are a little bit more on the opaque side. They're not all completely opaque, but some of them are. And that makes it harder to mix, okay, because we can get mud a lot easier when we're using opaque colors, all right? Transparency is very important in color mixing, all right? In handmade watercolors, however, we have such a wide variety of colors to choose from. Look at all these different reds that we often don't have to mix as often. These are my Wildthorn paints. I mean, look at how many different pinks and red, like reddish colors and grays and blues that I have to choose from. So I don't have to mix as many, all right? And it's just a different way of painting. So I'm not going to get into that today. All right, that will be fodder for another video. But we're going to start with the split primaries using a traditionally made watercolor, all right? And I have 2 brands that I use most often, and one is Winsor & Newton, and the other is Daniel Smith. There are many good brands of watercolor: Holbein, Sennelier, Schminke, M. Graham. I mean, there are just so many that you could choose from. Daler Rowney, Van Gogh, many brands. Core, Golden Core are wonderful. Mission Gold are wonderful. So there are many that you can choose from. But to keep things simple, I'm going to talk about Winsor & Newton and Daniel Smith. The only one that I always stick with Daniel Smith is for my warm red, and I'll talk about that a bit more. So you can see here, I have a little salad-sized dinner plate, a salad-sized white plate, and I have it set up like the color wheel. So at the top of my color wheel, I have my 2 yellows, a cool yellow and a warm yellow. And then as I go around the color wheel, I'm going to my warm red and my cool red, then my warm blue and my cool blue. I always set up my palette like this because it makes my mixing more intuitive, all right? So what I want you to do today, well, first, you know what? First I'm going to go through the colors. So we're going to put a little bit more paint on here. This palette is dry from the other day, and I just refresh it with just a little dab of paint here and there if I need to. So the cool yellow needed some. I think other than that, we're good. So I'm going to move this aside and bring in this sheet of paper. All right, and I want to see how well I can see both of these in the video screen. Okay, so I'm going to move this down a little bit and this down a little bit. You should be able to see both. Just know that, let me see if I can raise this up. It's tough because my little thing is not so big. Okay, I think you can see everything you need to see here. All right, so what I want to do is I want to go through each of these 6 colors and tell you about them, all right? So I'm going to start with my cool yellow, and I'm going to swatch it out here. So I'm just picking up a little bit on my brush with some water, and I'm going to paint it across this black stripe. Now this black stripe was drawn with a permanent black marker, like a Sharpie. And I'm going to take some yellow and just swatch it over the black line. This yellow is a cool yellow, and it's cool because it leans toward green on the spectrum, okay? Cool yellow is sort of like a lemon yellow. A lot of times cool yellows are actually called lemon yellow. And this one is PY3, and I'll take a picture of this when I'm done so I can show you after it dries up close. PY3 is called Hansa Yellow Light. To me, it's the best cool yellow to use because it's totally permanent, which means light fast. It won't fade on your paintings over time. And it's as transparent as a cool yellow gets, so it's semi-transparent. And you'll see when this dries, there will be a little bit of a yellow cast over this black line. Okay, so that's my cool yellow. The warm yellow is called New Gamboge. So Hansa Yellow Light is a single pigment, and New Gamboge is a compound pigment. It's the only compound pigment that I use in my split primary limited palette. New Gamboge, this one is by Daniel Smith. All of the manufacturers I think make a New Gamboge, but they're made of different pigments. So make sure you look and see if the pigments that they're made of are transparent or semi-transparent. So this one is also highly light fast, it's very transparent, and it's made from PY97 and PY110, okay? So I'm going to swatch that out right here. And you'll see as I swatch this one out, it really just disappears right over that black line. It's a very, very transparent color. So this is PY110. I always forget, and PY97. And you might not be able to see my writing, but don't worry, I will take a picture of this later. So moving along to my warm red, okay, so warm yellow leans toward orange or red, all right? Warm red leans toward orange or yellow. And so my warm red is this beautiful, rich, tomatoey red, okay? And I'm going to paint that right here. So this one is called Transparent Pyrrole Orange. It's the very best warm red that I know. And it is PO71. It's so transparent, totally light fast, gorgeous color, the perfect warm red. This is by Daniel Smith, okay? So this one, PO71, is a warm red that leans toward our yellow or orange. And the reason I have them next to each other on the color wheel instead of over here is because the warm red and the warm yellow are going to make the clearest, cleanest oranges, okay? So then we'll move along to the cool red, and this is called Quinacridone Rose. It leans toward magenta or violet. It's cool. It's the cool side of the spectrum. It's totally transparent, completely light fast, all right? And the number is PV19. Some brands, like Winsor & Newton, will call it Permanent Rose, all right? Same color, PV19. Then moving along, I'm gonna go to my warm blue. Warm blue is next to cool red because warm blue leans toward red or violet. So it leans toward the warmer side of the spectrum. Blue is still a cool color, and I know that's confusing for some people. Let me put it down here. So this blue is French Ultramarine. I'll swatch it here. Totally transparent, totally light fast. Beautiful, beautiful color. The reason it's next to the cool red is that if I mix these two together, I'm going to get the cleanest, clearest violet possible. All right? Now, the last color is cool blue. It's called Phthalo Blue Green Shade. completely transparent, leans toward turquoise or green, okay? And highly, highly light fast. This pigment is very, very strong, all right? It is PB 15.3. Now this one here is PB 29. And this is PB 15.3, all right? And all brands make a phthalo blue. They have different names for it, but if you look for PB 15.3, you're getting the right pigment, okay? So with all of that said, every time you buy an artist grade paint, which I highly recommend, they're more economical in the end because they're more concentrated and you use less of them, and they just give you much better results. But on every tube of artist grade paint, you will see some information, and it's going to be hard for you to read because it's hard for me to read, even with my glasses on. But on the label, it tells you the light fastness, and 1 is the highest rating, okay? And it tells you the pigment. So the pigment in here is phthalocyanine blue, PB 15.3, all right? So PB stands for pigment blue, PV pigment violet, PO pigment orange, PY pigment yellow, and PY pigment yellow. Even PR pigment red, PBR pigment brown, PBK pigment black. So they'll all have that on the label. So you can always check and see what the pigment is that you're buying. This is important because sometimes if we want to find a phthalo blue-green shade in another brand, it may be called Horizon Blue, and we have no idea. So if we look at the pigment number and see PB 15.3, we can be certain that we're getting the same pigment, okay? So these are our 6 colors. And as you can see, they have all disappeared except for this yellow, which left a very faint little line. And I'll take a picture of this to upload. Very, very faint, okay? They've all completely disappeared over that black line. That means they are transparent and they are perfect for a mixing palette, all right? So this is a really important test to do with any of your paints. Now, to show you the difference, if I take some of my handmade watercolors and let's say, I'll take a little bit of this sunflower yellow, which is a very cool lemon yellow, perfect in hue, but if I paint it over this black line, do you see how it totally covers it? That is an opaque paint. It's very useful. You can go from opaque and add more water to it to get a very transparent, luminous effect, but it's not going to be ideal for a lot of mixing, okay? And then just to show you another one, if I take this orange and put it over here, you see how it stands on top of the black line. So because a lot of these handmade mineral paints are made with minerals and gemstones, they are not just naturally as transparent as the modern artificial pigments, okay? The organic pigments. All right. So that is a really important thing to do with your paints. Whatever paints you're using, you can find out if they're transparent or opaque, or somewhere in between. And for our split primaries, we really, really want them to be as transparent as possible. All right, so that's the first test that you can do with your paints. So back to this, my mixing dish. I'm just gonna clean it up a little bit. And when you're mixing, the great thing about these plates is you can just take a paper towel and just wipe up your palette here and there if you need to get a fresh start. It's really great. Sometimes if it dries overnight, I'll just put it under the sink and wash it off and dry it, and it's ready to go. It's really handy. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to make a color wheel. All right. And before we do that, I want to show you one other thing. So these are some mineral paints, and these are some traditional paints. You can see the texture in these mineral paints. That's called granulation. When some of the pigment particles are too heavy to dissolve in water, they settle in the grooves of the paper and they give us this granulation. It is so beautiful. It's one of my favorite things about watercolor, okay? And then you can see these over here that are totally smooth. This is phthalo blue. This is phthalo green. All right? So they're totally smooth. So that is also something you can do. You can make test swatches of your colors and see which are granulating and which are smooth. Smooth colors tend to be staining, which means they're harder to lift off of the paper if you need to. All right, so just something to keep in mind. Granulating and staining. This is another really important quality about our watercolors. In the split primary palette that I've shown you, there's only one granulating color, and that's French ultramarine blue. So we can add that to any mix to give it that granulation property if we want to, okay? All right, so back to my color wheel. I'm going to show you on the plate my first mix, just so you can see that. And then after that, I'm going to move it aside, all right? So the first thing we're going to do here is we're going to swipe out our colors. So I'm going to use a clean brush, and I'm going to start with my cool yellow, just take a little dab of it, and I'm going to make a little test patch right here on my color wheel. All right? Clean my brush. You can even write the names of the colors if you want. And to make this circle, all I did was take a saucer and trace it, and then I split it into 3 sections, sort of like a peace sign without that additional line in it. So I've got 3 sections. I've got for the greens, the oranges, and the purples. It's in 3 sections. All right? So that's our cool yellow. Next, I'm going to put a little swatch of the warm yellow. Okay? And I'm going to go around the color wheel and around my plate and swatch out each of these colors so I know what those pure colors are. That's my warm red. Next is my cool red. Just a little swatch. Next is my warm blue. And then my cool blue is last. So what you will notice is that these pure colors in their pure form are really vibrant and bright, okay? The reason for this, the reason I chose these colors is because we can never mix a color that is brighter than what we start with. It's just impossible. Whenever you mix 2 colors, you are losing a little bit of vibrancy. So we want to start with those really true, clean, clear, vibrant colors. And we can mute them if we want to, right? But we want to start with them this way, because once we add another color to this, we are losing that vibrancy. So let's say we want to paint something that has this beautiful, clear turquoise blue in it. If we're starting with pigments that aren't this clear and bright, we will never be able to achieve that color. So it's really important that we start with colors that are this vibrant. So now that I have those swatched out, we're going to go around the color wheel and we're going to fill in the secondary colors. So as you already know, I'm sure, yellow, red, and blue are the primary colors. Primary colors cannot be mixed with any other colors. So you can't mix a true blue, all right? Yellows and reds. So if you think about your inkjet printer has a yellow ink, it has a magenta ink, so more like this pinky color, and it has cyan ink, more like the cool blue, and it has black. With those 4 colors, you can mix any possible color out of millions and millions of colors. It's the same with our split primaries. However, we have a little bit of an added benefit to make things easier for ourselves because we have a cool and a warm of each color. If we wanted to go back to the very basics, we could go with the cool yellow, the cool red, and the cool blue, and we could mix many, many colors, but it's just going to take more of an effort. So we have an added benefit by having 2 of each primary color. So in between the primary colors on the color wheel live the secondary colors. So think about yellow and red make orange. Orange is a secondary color. So on my plate, I'm going to pick up that warm yellow. Okay. Then I'm going to pick up some of my warm red, about the same amount, mix them together, and I'm going to get a really beautiful, clean, clear orange. And I'm going to take that and I'm going to paint it right in between those two colors. So there's my orange. All right, orange is a secondary color. So now I'm going to do the same with the cool red and the warm blue. Red and blue make violet. So I'm going to do that on my palette. I'll show you. So a little bit of cool red. An equal amount of warm blue. I get this gorgeous violet, maybe a little bit more blue. There's my violet. Okay? Violet is a secondary color. Then I'm going to go over to my green side, yellow and blue, and I'm going to take just a touch of that cool blue, because remember I had said how strong it is? And then some cool yellow, mix them together. A little bit more cool blue. And I'm going to get this beautiful, vibrant green that is almost never found in nature. we can fix that in other ways. But remember what I said, we want to start with the clearest, cleanest mixes that we can, the most vibrant colors that we can. And later we'll learn how to mute those out and make all sorts of natural shades. So now we have our primary colors on these lines, and we have our secondary colors in between them. All right? But it doesn't stop there. So now, on our plate, we're going to take a clean, dry brush and just draw a line through the middle of our orange. On the left side, where it's closer to the warm yellow, I'm going to add more warm yellow to it. A little bit more. And I'm going to paint that in between the two. Okay? Then on the other side, I'm going to add more warm red. And I'm going to paint that right here. Now what has happened is I have taken a secondary color and I've mixed it with a primary color, and I've achieved a tertiary color. So this is the third tier of color. Tertiary colors are yellow orange, red orange, red violet, blue violet, blue green, and yellow green. So I'm going to go around and I'm going to do the same thing for the violet. I'm going to split it in half. I'm going to add some of the cool red to this side, and I'm going to get red violet and paint it right here. And on the other side, I'm going to add some warm blue, and I'm going to get blue violet. Okay? And then the same thing for my green. Split it in half, add a bunch of cool yellow to one side, and I get yellow green. And if I add cool blue, just a touch, to the other side, I get blue green. So now we have our primaries, our secondaries, and our tertiary colors. This is the color wheel. So traditionally, the color wheel would show the primaries with one yellow, one red, and one blue. And if I wanted to do that, all I have to do is take a little bit of warm yellow, a little bit of cool yellow, and I get a neutral yellow, and I could just make a stripe of that right in between. Okay, so you can always make a neutral yellow using your cool and warm together. And then I can take a little bit of my warm red, a little bit of my cool red, And then right in between, I get a bright fire engine red. Okay, so that's pretty handy. Totally transparent fire engine red, hard to find. And then I can take a little bit of my warm blue and a touch of my cool blue, mix them together, and I get a true primary blue. So those, my friends, are the basics of your color wheel. All right? What I want you to do is I want you to create your own transparency test, all right, using the 6 paints that you've chosen for your split primary palette. And then I want you to list their pigment numbers so you get familiar with them. If you have any questions about this, please ask me. If you have questions about which ones to choose, just ask me, okay? But I want you to create a transparency chart, and then I want you to create a color wheel using your paints, all right? This is all we're learning for today, all right? We're gonna take this step by step so nobody gets overwhelmed and we can build our skills over time. That's a really important thing. If we learn too much at once, we get overwhelmed and then we don't do it. All right, so this is our first step. And you're going to make your own color wheel exactly like I've done here. Again, I'm going to upload photos of these. All right, and then you will have sort of a roadmap of your own colors that you're going to be using, your split primaries. Again, any questions, please ask me. All right. One thing I do want to show you, let me get another piece I'll use the back of this paper. So let's say you're trying to decide on your cool red. Let me just show you something. A cool red, remember I showed you how the cool red made that beautiful vibrant purple, right? But let's say I mixed a warm red. My red was a little bit warmer, and my blue was a little bit cooler. What do I get? I get kind of this eggplanty, purpley, dark blue brown. I don't get vibrant purple. Isn't that incredible? So here's the thing. So many times we buy these pre-packaged sets of watercolors and they come with a red, a yellow, a blue, a green, and we want to make purple. We mix the red and the blue we have together and it's not purple. It's like this, okay? So that's why it's really important to have these clear, clean colors on our mixing palette. It's remarkable to me how just a little bit of a shade off and we get a completely different result. So let's say here I've got cool red, and let's say my blue is a little bit cooler, and I mix those together a little bit more. Here's my purple. It's really dark. It's more vibrant than this, but it's not that clear, clean violet that we want. Okay, so every single red and blue is going to react differently. I want you to find the two that make the clearest, cleanest violets. That's a really important one. Your warm blue and your cool red. Very, very important. All right? Okay, so that's all for today. Again, ask me any questions that you might have. This is a really important thing. I know it might sound really basic and boring, but color theory is incredibly important because what it allows me to do is to see a color, right, like on this tin, and say, how am I going to make that? And I can look, we'll make color charts next time. I can look at my color chart and know where to start. And then I can say, well, actually, you know what? I could just go with a little of this. And what else does it need? I mean, it's totally intuitive for me, so I see a color and I know what to add to it now. Maybe a touch of orange. And I can get a color that's very close to what I see. All right? That's why this is important, because it becomes intuitive and we know what to grab and we know how to mix and we don't even have to think twice about it anymore. All right? So let's get started with this. And you're going to learn color theory and you're going to be mixing like a pro in no time. All right, any questions, please ask. Thank you so much for being here. I hope this was helpful for you, and I will see you next week with more videos. All right, take care. Have a great weekend. Bye-bye.